to the People by People podcast with me, your host, Laura Sutherland. Today, I'm really delighted to welcome to the show Head of Client Success at Radioactive PR, Angharad. Welcome to the show.
Nicely done.
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, thank you. It's come off the back of a really busy week, but they're all busy weeks at the minute, and I guess we're grateful for that.
So you work with Rich at Radioactive, yeah?
I do, and I love that you don't even have to say his last name. So say, oh, you work with Rich. Oh, that Rich. Yeah, yes, I do. Going on. Gosh, it'll be coming up to 4 years in October.
So Rich spoke at PR Fest. That's how I know him.
Yes, he did. But not this year, was it? It was previous years.
It was in year 2, I think it might have been.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. He gets around.
Yeah. He sure does. Oh dear. So today we are going to be talking about leadership. So what does leadership look like to you? Why did you choose to talk about this today?
It's been really interesting to me. It's been a bit of a journey, if I'm honest, and it's really come out in the last, I guess, 6 months or so, kind of through the pandemic, where I got promoted to my current role as head of client success at Radioactive in January, sort of as I came off maternity leave, and I my passion for wanting to be a good example for a team that I lead so that you can get the best out of them, I think has become even more prevalent now that I'm in a role that needs me to do that. Whereas before I kind of just was like, come on guys, let's just do our best here, and you just kind of embolden that as part of your personality. And then through the pandemic, I remember when the news came, it was like, okay, so we're gonna work from home, sort of mid-March time we decided that, and then the 23rd of March, and it was, okay, this is getting really real. Just consciously really aware that we had a whole team of people all thinking the same things we were, and oh crap, what's happening? And needing to be that calm voice of reason. Yet we're losing clients like everybody. Yes, this is a bit, if we heard the word unprecedented anymore, we were going to punch ourselves in the face. But it's kind of like when you say in a press release, we're a leading company. No, it stops meaning anything after a while.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing about leadership, really, it's a role that I knew I would grow into, given my position at the agency now. It's the first time we've had someone at the agency in this kind of role, but it was almost fast-tracked by the pandemic. And what I find really interesting about it is, for me personally, I've never been a one to self-promote as maybe as obviously as others in the industry have and have done successfully. But even me, I kind of went, oh, why not me? And by proxy of that, why not my team? Why not be the leader my team needs me to be? And yeah, it's like I said, I'm just really passionate about it.
Do you think there's a bit of imposter syndrome in there then, from your own perspective, the way you said, like, why not me? Because I think that's the thing. Once you get over that challenge of yourself essentially being in your way, then the possibilities and the opportunities and the excitement that probably filled you with, like, I can lead the team and I can make them feel like they're part of our team still. We just have to figure out how we're going to do it. Do you feel like our industry was a bit, and I think from a personal point of view, I felt like our industry was quite faceless during the pandemic, especially at the start of lockdown, when people were almost scrambling about. And I feel like that's why I set up PRs Unite, because I very quickly clicked on in the first week that especially people that had just started, like, out on their own, were just starting agencies, that there wasn't much of a face there for people to like, it's okay, and I think from your perspective, you've got a team in this new role you've been in. It was escalated and really fast tracked, but maybe that was quite good, a baptism of fire for you.
I think so, and I think a lot of my learning throughout my career has been on the job. on the job learning. Like I trained as a journalist, broadcast journalist, did radio for a little bit, and came into PR still quite early on in my career, but certainly just chucked in at the deep end. And I've always worked in small agencies where there's just nowhere to hide. And I think, to go back to your earlier point in the question, the imposter syndrome 100% was there. I think it's part of my personality. It just is. You know, I've dealt with it a lot my whole life. I wouldn't say it's held me back. I mean, I am where I am now. I've got a really great team, really great boss, really great agency. He didn't pay me to say that. But genuinely, like, really, I don't feel imposter syndrome only in the fact that I kind of let opportunities that pass me by and then go, oh, that could have been something. And then gone, oh, do you know what? It's fine. I'm still really happy with where I am. To which, you know, when I saw your call out, and this was at the beginning of lockdown, for people to come on the podcast, I did have a kind of stuff it moment. But yeah, I think the imposter syndrome is 100% there, and so the baptism of fire works for me. Yeah. Because in a pandemic, and I'm sure people like Daryl, who, you know, found doing hard numbers at the time, and everybody else that started doing something new just as this kicked off, I'm sure they'd say the same thing. It was, all right, well, sleeves up. What are we going to do? This is what it is. We're going to have to do. This was the plan. It changes. This is what we need. And I agree. I think leadership from the top levels, I mean, top levels of PR, I use kind of in inverted commas because I'm not actually affiliated with any professional body. I have been in the past. I'm not currently. And I guess that in my situation, we make him sound a bit like a deity, but we turned to Rich. You know, he owns and he runs the agency, so it's a lot of pressure to put on him. But he was there. You know, we all made it work, and we did what we needed to do. But then I think, well, who was there for him and the other agency owners? You know, like you, and particularly the freelance people in our industry, who was making sure that they were being talked about, you know, the support packages for them. The furlough scheme was incredible, but everything else came too little too late, and off the back of public pressure for the government to just recognise that these people contribute, and, you know, they've got bills to pay, and children.
I was one of the ones that didn't get a penny.
Yeah, oh my goodness. So you know, you've lived it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say there are things happening now that maybe you could look back in hindsight and say should have happened sooner. But I think scrabbling is the right word. We all, even those of us who had support nets, had teams, had bosses to look up to, we all scrabbled a little bit. And we wouldn't have been human if we didn't.
I think it's okay that people scrabble, because nobody's ever gone through this situation.
Yeah.
It's life-changing, you know. Yeah. So I think that, you know, one of the things that I talk about a lot and I help clients with is personal brand. It's something that I work on myself, because I believe it's really important that if you're going to be seen, if you're going to be heard, if you're going to be a good leader, if you're going to set that example like you were talking about, then personal brand really needs to be something you focus on and think about your values and your purpose. And you know, one of the things that, you know, you had mentioned when we were previously chatting this through was being your whole self at work. Yeah, and that's a huge thing that we bring to Radioactive. It's not even a box ticking thing. I've seen some companies sort of say, yeah, be yourself. Oh, but, you know, don't have tattoos. Or I've been to interviews, or I've been involved in interviews in the past at different companies where, you know, we've had somebody come in who seems like they do a really great job, and that, you know, my superiors at the time would say, oh, she's got a nose ring, is that going to be a problem? And I'm like, no. Well, what will clients think? Well, it's a nose ring. Does it stop her doing her job? Not really. And I know some of that's a cultural or a generational thing, but I think we need to be more open to people, you know, like you said, being their whole selves at work. I, outside of work, have a very busy life, as I'm sure you do, and as I'm sure everyone listening does. So I don't want that to come in and stop me being able to do my job, but I do want my colleagues to see that I'm a person. I'm not a robot. Yeah. And I can only really do my best work if I'm feeling my best self. Yeah. And that is so many different factors on any given day about what's motivating me, how I'm feeling, how much caffeine I've had. Yeah, there's a problem. Rich always says to me, how many of those have you had today?
But there is, you need to be able to be a bit warts and all, even, I think even especially in a leadership role, particularly people in leadership positions need to show junior colleagues that it's okay to have a bit of a day when, not that you're not feeling it, like, come on, you get paid to do a job, let's help you get to a place where you can do that job effectively as you always would on a day when you were feeling your 100%. But also knowing, okay, depending on what's going on in their lives, how can I rejig their priorities today? How can I get other team members to help out a little bit? And in the same way, we always say it here that, we work for each other. So if someone's struggling or not hitting deadlines, that can't just be because they're not good at their job. We wouldn't have hired them if they weren't. You need to look at yourself and say, what am I not doing as a leader that means this person can do their best work?
I think that, like, I can identify quite clearly in the last, I would say, 8 years, quite specifically, of me changing from a person who would go to work and be utterly professional, and back in the day I did wear like pinstripe trouser suits and shirts, and the heels and all the rest of it, and there came a time when I realized that wasn't me. And when my clients, so when I started to work, so when Aura started, originally it was an agency, but now I work by myself as a consultant. And when I started to work closely with clients and have my own dress style even, which reflected me and how I felt as a person, clients noticed things like that, and not commented on my clothes necessarily, but would comment on that sort of style. And I think when you're comfortable with your own experience and your own skills and your own, the way that you look and the way you feel, I think that has a certain amount to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to take a really weird point, I guess, but you look at Mark Zuckerberg wearing his hoodie and his jeans, and he can, because he knows he's already proved what he knows and what he does. Whatever side of the fence you are on how good or bad Facebook is right now, you can't deny that he gets away with being able to dress like that. Steve Jobs had his uniform because he knew he'd proven himself as a leader. He was there at the top, and he's like, look, I dress like this because this is who I am, and it doesn't stop me from doing great work. In some ways, I remember reading, there's a fashion PR in the States, Kelly Catrone, who I originally saw when I watched The Hills many years ago, as a bit of a reality TV junkie. But she wrote in one of her books, there's a reason she dresses the same every single day. Now I don't, because I haven't got that much discipline, but there's a reason she does it. It's because it clears her mind of other things, and if that helps you do a better job, then great, do it. To lead in that sense is, I think, to know exactly who you are, what you're about, and what you can do, and not let the other trappings of modern culture dip into that unless they absolutely need to. I mean, I would never, I come to the office and I'm quite happy not to have any makeup on, whereas you'd have asked me 10 years ago, I would not have left the house without a scrap of makeup on. It would have been unheard of for me. But I still personally, I wouldn't go to a meeting looking like that. So everyone's got their own style, the way they do things and what they're comfortable in. And I think as long as you can own it, and if you're walking into a corporate office and they're going to be dressed like that, it's just a mark of respect to dress a bit more corporate. In the same way that if it's a more casual client you're going to go and see wearing a suit, they might not feel comfortable doing business with you. That's not what they're about. So how do you kind of match up with them a little bit?
So that all comes back to, like, I suppose, presenteeism, so the physical form of a leader, which I think is really important. And a lot of what we've talked about during lockdown has been like the leadership actually showing up, and not just showing up, but showing up, being present, and being part of a solution, part of a discussion, and demonstrating that not like, you know, patronizingly, everything's going to be okay, but
Yeah,
showing a way
totally.
forward and showing that this is how we're going to do it and this is the part you're going to play, and you know, communicating that effectively, which is, you know, what we do.
In theory, yeah.
But
Yeah.
what would you say were like, you know, I've been talking a long time about public relations not just having being about public relations. It's actually about a lot more skills, a lot wider skill set in terms of management, in terms of other parts of leadership, like, you know, finance is a really big one. What would you say are skills that you think that we should have as leaders nowadays?
I think probably the thing that served me the best, and one that I think can be lacking in certain leaders, just because it's more of a soft skill and it's not maybe not seen as valuable, is emotional intelligence. I think being able to read a room, to know, and I'm not saying be psychic, absolutely not. It's not as waffly as that. It's to be able to kind of get a sense of what people are expecting from you, how, and that's your team as well as your clients, but how you making that choice as a leader is going to impact everyone in your team, good or bad. And, you know, sometimes you still make those decisions, but I've always got a level of that running through what I'm doing in the office. I'm kind of got one eye on, okay, so this junior colleague over here, they've been a bit quiet today. Okay, do I need to kind of just jump in and be like, you okay? And it might be they're just getting their head down, but it might not be. And just keeping a kind of low hum of, I care about you as a member of my team. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have the awkward conversations when work's not good enough, and there's no real reason for that other than they're just maybe not putting in the time and the effort. But for me as a leader, I think if you want people to respect you, to follow what you're asking them to do, you need to know how that's going to impact them on a personal and a professional level. And I still think one of the key things that I've seen, certainly in my career, from poor leaders that I've experienced, is this kind of, I guess, what's the word I'm thinking of? An entitlement, I guess, of, I'm now here and you're here underneath me. I've paid my dues, so now I don't need to do that. That's a slog job for you to do because I'm above you. And I think that's the wrong attitude. I think one, in PR, when you get to a leadership level, you don't really do PR anymore. Unless you're, like you're working for yourself, you still dabble in clients, but you get the opportunity to be sort of the other side of it. For me, I like to make sure I keep my hand in writing a press release, in pitching to a journalist, and every so often, because that's what I love to do. And we always talk about, and this is a widely used phrase, you can't be what you can't see, and to a certain extent, part of that, obviously that absolutely covers diversity across, gender, race, and other things in leadership roles. And I know that you've had a couple of people on the podcast. Is it Advita?
Yeah,
and she's really great at, she's really big advocate for that. And but at another level, it works for, in an agency like ours, I'll still do the washing up if I'm allowed now because of COVID, I don't know. But I'll still make sure before COVID, I would do a tea round, because it's the little things. I haven't become completely incompetent at making tea for my team, or if I've got 5 minutes, yes, maybe my time is better spent or is more valuable, I don't know, approving something, or
also showing that you care. And I think that's the difference, and where, like, let's call them false leaders who are in the position because they're there, but leaders who actually care about their teams will take the time to do stuff like that, will take the time to put care packages together, check in on people. I think that's a lot of the time, though, when you talk about emotional intelligence and when we talk about presenteeism, I think that's part of the problem with false leaders. I don't even think that's a term. I've just made that up for the discussion. But
you know, people sort of that have failed up somehow, or not. I mean, not even that. Maybe people that are really good at PR. I'm still finding my feet as a leader of this team, and I will hold my hands up and say that if you ask them now about things I've cocked up on in the last 6 to 8 months, I'm sure there'll be things,
Yeah.
but because they know I care about them, it engenders them caring about me. And they know that whatever I'm doing, I am trying my absolute hardest. You know, I would never ask a member of my team to do something they haven't seen me do.
Yeah.
So if the need calls, and we know it's in PR, sometimes they're antisocial hours, sometimes there are long hours, particularly in a pandemic when you're like, okay, clients may be going in certain sectors, what are we doing about it? You put the effort in, and I don't want my team to ever say, oh, I must work this long because Angharad worked this long. But if there ever came a need when it's that, or, you know, worst case scenario, lose a client, or, you know, miss an opportunity with a journalist, and I'm asking them to work late into the evening, I need them to know that it's not something that I wouldn't do, or B haven't done. And I think that's something that, again, we talked about this, working for each other. You know, our whole ethos at Radioactive is, you know, happy team doing good work for happy clients.
Yeah.
You know, my whole remit is keeping clients happy. I can't keep them happy if my team isn't doing great work, and they're not going to do great work if they're not happy. So it's this whole circle, and every part of it means that I have to give a shit. Sorry, Mum. I have to give a shit about every single aspect that's going on. And while that can be exhausting, I also find it really empowering and you know, really exciting that I get to nurture new talent coming through, show clients the great work we're able to do for them, and kind of, I guess, kind of shape that for us as an agency, because Rich has taken a step back on that side of things as he's growing the group. So, you know, we've got Radioactive Talent coming on, and the other sort of things with the business that I can't talk about. Very talkative. I'll be fired. No. But I feel incredibly lucky and you know, really proud that he's given me this remit. And you know, I've known Rich now for, gosh, 10 plus years. We're similar age, both started in PR in Gloucestershire around the same time, always had parallel careers until he said, hey, I've started this agency, let's talk. And I'm just really, I'm really excited to be able to shape it. And in a small agency, you get to do that. I think a lot of leaders, particularly in bigger ponds, there's a risk that this is how we do it at this agency.
Yeah.
This is the leader we need you to be. And that doesn't always work. I mean, it can backfire on you, don't get me wrong. I hate being the bad guy, but I will be the bad guy. It is definitely not my favorite thing to do, but I'm lucky because if I'm doing everything else right, if I'm caring about my team, I've got an eye on the clients, I've thought about what I'm doing to help every single area of the business, then I don't have to have as many of those conversations. And I think it's just about being really honest with people. And if as a team we've messed up on something, or a team member has dropped the ball, being okay to say, all right, I'm not going to yell at you because, one, you're not a child. We're having an adult conversation here. I'm talking to you as an adult.
It comes back to being a human again. That's the thing. As long as you treat someone with respect, and give them their place, and you're honest and you communicate effectively, that is
that's all you can do. And being okay, the higher up you get, as you know, the bigger your mistakes are, because that's what the responsibility that comes with the role is. And we, I'm going to swear again, we always say, Radioactive, shit rolls uphill. So, okay, an exec might make a mistake on a story that costs some coverage, or a client's really unhappy, but really that went through approval processes. And at some point, even if Rich or I have not been involved in that process or seen that story as an example, we are still, the higher up you go, there's still a culpability that comes with you for everything that goes out of this agency. You kind of have to say, no, that's on us, because we should have checked it more. Now that you have to find the balance, because that junior team member needs to learn from that mistake, but what they don't need is an ear bashing from a client. It's managing that learning and teaching moment in a way that is useful to them and makes them think, I've got yelled at and I don't want to come to work here anymore. Because I've worked in places where you'd hear the higher ups come through the door and you'd feel sick to your stomach. Like I've been there.
Yeah.
So I've seen the leaders I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And if I'd hate the fact that if anyone of my team thought, I don't want to be here because Angharad's here, well, that would just be the worst thing for me, because we're supposed to be all working towards the same thing, which is happy clients and great work. So we can't do that if we...
I remember an agency owner that I used to work for, and I remember we would in the morning be sitting looking at the door waiting for her to come in and wondering what kind of mood she was going to be in, because that would determine how our day was going to be and how
100%.
And
oh my God, I thought it was just me.
look over at each other and be like, you know, like raising the eyebrows, like, oh no, it's one of those days.
Yeah.
Oh, but she was like, she had definitely like some sort of split personality, where some days she would be like your best friend, and then other days she would come in and have like the most foul mood, and you would be like, I don't want to go to work.
It's interesting because sometimes you don't know whether it's just who they are as a person. Maybe they're a sucky person. They just aren't made for that kind of role. Or, you know, what often happens, I've seen, and I'm sure like I said, I make mistakes on the regular, I'm sure, but what you often see is we're PR people. We get into PR because we're good at it, and then all of a sudden this leadership role comes on, and it's different. You know, like you said, you talked about finance, team management. There are whole courses and studies and things you can look at around learning and development. In fact, my husband is a learning and development coordinator for a big outdoor brand. So what I learn from him, which is very useful. But not everybody has that. And I think we forget that the day-to-day PR role is so different from a leadership role in any business, but particularly in ours. I wouldn't say I did PR very much anymore.
So what would you say then, and I suppose kind of moving forward for the industry as a PR person in a leadership role, what do you think needs to change, whether it's skills based or whether it's attitude and culture based?
I think it's a mixture of both, as always, which maybe feels like a cop-out answer, but I think we need to look at leadership. It's a weird one because there's quite obviously there's more men at the top of in PR leadership, and you know the reasons why. You know, I've just taken 8 months out to have my first child, and it was a long 8 months, and things change. But you know, I'm lucky to be at a job and in an agency where my contribution is still really valuable, and I was promoted into the role I am, which I was really grateful for. I think we don't put maybe enough emphasis on the soft skills side of things. You hear the word leader, and I think because we're not typically leadership people as we come up through the ranks, there's a lot of emphasis on the harder skills. So, okay, to be a leader, you need to, these processes need to be in place. This finance stuff needs to be done. I'm very much an advocate for on-the-job learning, which I'm sure people that do formalized PR training will not want to hear. But I do follow, or try to follow, the sort of 70-20-10 model for my personal development and the team's personal development, which is, 70% on-the-job training, 20% sort of reading around and going away and doing your own thing, and 10% of is just the formal training part. And we have a training budget here every quarter, which we've like a lot of agencies probably haven't used enough of in the last year or so due to circumstances. But yeah, I think it's trust. It's building trust in your staff, trusting in yourself to know what you're doing, and letting those soft skills not be seen as a weak secondary part of leadership. Thinking about the emotional intelligence, thinking how you nurture that, and really looking at what your culture is doing. Don't view leadership activities like one-to-ones or feedback be a box ticking exercise, but make it part of your culture. So I'm a big advocate here for 360 feedback. So if any of the team can say, I don't think Angharad handled that well, and not in a judgmental way, and I might say, well, this is the best way I've done things, and this is why we chose to do the route we did. But they know that they could push back on me a little bit if they wanted to. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm just going to sit there and be like, you were terrible, you did this wrong, because
it has to be two-way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not some sort of god overseeing my junior team and saying, I've done this for this many years, which means I'm better than you. That's not the case, because, and I remember an example of, we came up with an idea for a client, and it was right when I started at the agency, and it was one of our junior, I think it was one of our apprentices even at the time, came up with this creative idea. But I didn't really get it, and I wasn't sold on it. And I remember thinking, if I'd been in the agency longer, I might have pushed back. But I thought, no, I'm kind of new to how the agency works. I'll be quiet. And the story absolutely flew. And it just, every time I think I'm not sure on something somebody else is suggesting, I always think back to that moment, because in that room, I was like, well, that's crap. And we've had this conversation. I've had this conversation with the guys. And I always think, if I'd stuck that story, which I could have done, had I had a bit more confidence or been in my role a bit longer, I could have said no, because I had the authority to. That client would never have got that coverage. And we were one of the first people to do that kind of story. And we've done it on the regular now, and people have kind of copied it, and it does really well. But I always remember, like, imagine if you'd stopped that, just because you could. And yeah, that kind of drives me now to really listen and take on the feedback.
Looking at our industry issues and what challenges we face as individuals and as agencies and within teams and organizations, there are a lot of challenges ahead where we really need strong leadership around diversity and inclusion, around purposely going out and changing things, which, you know, and I think some of the time, like especially right now, I would say that there's a real opportunity for not just the clients that I speak to. Like, I advise clients right now, and I have been for months. Now is the time to change if you're going to change.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of agencies that should be looking at what they do, teams that should be looking at the skills that they have, and you know, where they need to be going.
It's just not being afraid to make mistakes and try things. I think we've been a bit stagnant as an industry, and allowed other people to tell us what we are and what we do. And so from that sense, you know, we shouldn't still be talking about AVE and having AVE conferences about why it's bad. That, I remember joining Twitter, and that was one of the first things on PR Twitter that I saw. I was like, okay, well, my agency still uses AVE, because this was sort of 12 years ago. And I was like, okay, well, we need to move away from it. And we're still talking about it. And I feel like that should be done by now. And I, for rightly or wrongly, it's not. And there's a conversation about ethics, and there's all these areas that they can and you know, probably should be involved in, but they're the same conversations. And I think that's probably why I feel a little bit disenfranchised from the leadership in our industry, is no one seems to be willing to go, all right, I'll have a go. And I'm aware that I sound like an absolute hypocrite saying that, because I'm not doing it. You know, it's not, you know, it's all very well me saying no one's doing it. Well, neither am I. So, but I don't feel like that's something I either A, am qualified to do, or B, at the minute, want to take on.
Do you mean stand for leadership role in our industry? Is that what you mean? Or what do you mean somebody's doing it?
No, it's just in terms of when they take on a leadership role, I feel like we're having the same conversations. We're talking about, you know, it's not moving it on.
You don't feel like, so from my perspective, I will always talk about ethics because it's compulsory part of what we do. AVEs, I don't talk about AVEs. I haven't talked about AVEs for about.
We just forget about them.
No, but I do talk all the time about measurement and evaluation.
Oh, massively.
That's really bad, because people are asking the same question: how do we prove the value of what we do? How can my clients complaining about this? How can I demonstrate the value? And they haven't gone through any sort of measurement and evaluation process at the start of what they've been doing, and that's and so actually these conversations will carry on until professionals are professional and they do their jobs properly.
I think it's because partly, like you just said, you know, sometimes we let clients lead us, and I think that's a point. We do the proposal. We do a pitch for free. We come up with ideas for free. That is all based on the fact that we could win them. And as an industry, we've not even put value on our own time at that point. So then why would the client, if we said to a client, hey, let's, now we need to talk about your metrics and your measurement before we start, and they maybe push back a bit, why would we then have the kind of wherewithal to sort of say, okay, no, we are doing this now. And we've all worked for clients that are demanding, and sometimes rightly so, sometimes it's because they don't quite understand how PR works. But again, is that on us? And I think it's looking inside ourselves and saying, right, what are we not doing, and where can we do more? And if you let the client lead you,
we're very good at blaming, pointing the finger and saying, and as you say, I 100% believe, from conversations I've had with agency owners from across the world, that clients dictate what agencies do, and that is 100% not the right thing. It needs to be a two-way street, and it needs to be a partnership. There needs to be mutual respect, mutual understanding, and work that goes on to and fro between the client and the agency. There's never going to be respect or value added if you're just going to jump into the tune of what the client says you have to do. And keeping the client happy and delivering good work is not the same as doing what the client tells you what to do.
Absolutely. Because where's your consultative part in that? It's all very well. I mean, we've all been on calls where clients are a bit unhappy with results, because that's just, it's the ups and downs of PR, and the highs, the lows are as big as the highs sometimes. But no client is ever going to let you sit there and say, oh, but you said to do this, and that's why it didn't work. And they shouldn't, because at what point are we going to say, no, we lead this. You've come to us because you either know who we are, you like what we do for other companies.
But do you know why this is all an issue? It's because what agencies are looking for. They're looking for money. They're
100%.
about doing well for a client, so the client makes a difference to the world and society. They're doing it to make the money, and that is why purpose over profit was the topic of PR Fest this year. Because as soon as you have that sort of mindset, you're not in the mindset of doing good, and you're not in the mindset of changing things for the better and making that positive impact.
In an economy like we're in now, can we really blame some of the agencies? And even I sort of sit here and say, that's not the process we want to be a part of. But someone's got to stick their head up above the parapet and say, this is how we do it. And then if someone else will go, oh, okay, well, if they're doing it like that, and then clients suddenly realize, we're not going to be able to get through the door in this way. They're going to, they value their time, they value their work, and nobody wants to be first. The fact is, plenty of enough work for us out there. I think there's a lot of PR practitioners in the UK doing great things. Healthy competition is amazing. But let's just have each other's backs. And I think that's the leadership we need, is, part ways with a toxic client if they're not great for your company. Stop doing PR Twitter if it's making you a bit like, I'm not into that today. Just do what you need to make you, your agency, and your clients happy, and form that partnership of working with them. It's not, we might be offering a service, but we're not servants, to the clients, to the industry, to anything. It's, if you can close your laptop at the end of the day and feel like you've done a good job, that's all you can ask.
And on that note, thank you so much for that brilliant discussion around your own leadership, thoughts and thinking, and your team and work, but also moving on to the industry stuff as well, because I really feel that, like, our industry leadership, if we're going to be good leaders within our own organisations and teams, then we need to be seeing that from our own industry. And thanks so much.
No, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And that concludes yet another episode of the People by People podcast. There are only 2 left this year in 2020. Next week on the 24th of November, I speak to Katie Howell, and on the 1st of December, I speak to my chum Daryl. So thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to leave a review and subscribe to the podcast, and I will see you next week.